scevere vennanna darava strongevere vennizin mestuzu vuru sefta darava plani di rivides ya daral duru buru damun triala la 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 triala la 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 triala la 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 la
So the clay is this one. It usually comes in grey color, and it's imported clay we use because there is no high temperature clay in Cyprus, which is rather a problem. There's usually that red one that they make the flower pots with, but to get the colors and the results we want and to obey the health and safety standards, we use the high temperature clay, which is this one. At the beginning stage it looks like this, which is dark grey, but in the process it reaches this color, which is a lighter grey. You will see some other clays around the workshop, but we shall focus on this one today. And this is the first stage, then it reaches this stage, and then after this stage it needs to be fired. But to know how we fire it, you need to come inside and see the kilns. On the way there you see the wheels, which is the various tools that the potter uses. Here you see the wheels spinning, so you get to put the clay and you usually make the pot. What you're touching, for everything is rather sensitive. This is the kiln. In the kiln we fire the objects, so they get in the first stage, which is grey, and then they get this pinkish color. After they get the pinkish color, we get them out of the kiln and we dip them into the glazing, which is usually created by the oxides of various minerals and metals. And then you need to fire it again in order to get the final result, which will look something like this or like this, yes, which this is primarily with copper oxides that you can create black with manganese, and it goes on. The firing, for the first firing, you fire it up to 1000 degrees Celsius, which is rather high temperature to cook any other food, but for pottery it's rather necessary. Then for the second firing, you need to take it up to 1260 when it comes to this kind of pottery that we do. But 1260 doesn't give exactly the colors we like. So we cook it a little bit more. Potentially you could say that we burn a little bit the pottery to get the 1280 degrees that we desire. That gives you the very vivid and nice color. Now come along. That was the big kiln. This is the other one, which is smaller. You can come closer in. You can see a sculpture there that a student made. Don't worry if you break anything. We make another one. Now this is the room of the colors. You can see that there is a variety of colors, but it doesn't really look as it looks at the very. You see this color here? We call it topaz. It comes in this brownish red color, and this color results in a very different result. I'll show you. So you dip it in this color and you get this result here, which is rather strange. How the blue, these come out more or less the color you see, but anyhow it's one of the tricks in pottery that you have to imagine the result of the colors and just somehow go beyond your scientific methods and pray that the kiln will get the colors you really like. Any questions up to now? No. No? Oh, that's okay. And if you come to this room, you will see the results as they are when they are fired. Now you can recognize the native elements in this object. This is a recreation of a pre-existing model that potentially existed in the, I don't know which era, it could be Bronze Era even. And you can see that this is made with red clay. It comes a little bit orangey, for they made new recipes for it, but it's basically the clay that has been used in Cyprus ever since they started doing pottery. And it looks more like the soils of the place. And I could also show you this, which is the reason I managed to go to study, because this is the bestseller of my dad. And you can tell that there is knitting, traditional knitting of Cyprus here, which as far as I understand will be the objects of interest of this course. The correct way to cut the clay hypothetically is not with your hand as I did with that piece. You get a piece of string, you just pull it like that, and suddenly you get a piece which you feel very proud about. Yes, and we want to make it look not so sharp on the edges. Yes, very nice. And we follow Eula's instructions. And it's like go. Okay. So don't make it too flat. Yes, because we need to do the rest of the steps as well. That's all. Don't worry about it. So we use this as drivers, we would call it, to not allow us to make it too thin.
Okay.
And we use, how would we call this? Not quite sure, rolling pin. And you can get it and do this move as you're very familiar by your grandmother.
And they are used so it doesn't squeeze you down.
Yes, we use the driver so we don't make it too thin. Yes? Or otherwise it causes a bit of trouble with the result we get. So, now we got the shape we want, and we want to unstick it from the piece of wood. Yeah. As soon as you get the thickness, cannot choose a pattern. Yes. And we will need the drivers once again. Very good. And you follow Eula's actions. So you go on and you proceed to the previous activity. Yes. And then to get the detail, I take this, and I come here and I try to mark it as less as possible, not to break the pattern. And ta-da! You get this. So, wow. Unless you want it to be flat, because you have any contemporary desire to keep the dishes flat, you can use the mold where you get to lift it. So I'll show you how we do it together. You can hold this side, I hold this side. Yes. And we lift it and put it in the mold. Yes. Now that it is put, you shall look to Eula. We lift it and we do like pizza. And we are there. Yes. Now this will give it the chance to get the shape, and when it gets to the right amount of dryness, I will put it out. Yes, unless you are willing to wait here for a few hours, and we shall heat it down. Yes, and make sure to get exactly the feeling we want, because the shape of the mold is not destined to be the final stage. You need to intervene and play with it, but otherwise we wouldn't call it. So I think we made it. Bravo. Congrats to you.
Thank you.
You have learned the 1/4 of the techniques in pottery.
Yay.
This is called the slab. Now the slab looks very plain when you do something like that, but with the slab you can build the sculpture you saw inside. So you make flat surfaces, wait for them to dry a little bit, and you tie them around and you make a cone. Then you get the flat surface and you apply it on a sphere, and you make two half spheres, put them together, and you make the head. With the slab you can make abstract ceramic objects, you can make tiles for the wall, you can even make tiles for the floor, and you can make a bunch of things. It's an amazing technique, and it's really nice when you get the hang. It always takes that you are given just a mild demonstration of what it is you are supposed to be doing. So you usually put the clay somewhere in the center, and at the naked eye it will look as if it is in the center, but when you spin it, you will feel that it is not exactly in the center. Now, it might be looking as if it's in the center, but the shape might be deviating from it. So, what you want is to pressure it down and then lift it up. Yes? And you take it down and you lift it up. Yes? And you see how my hand started relaxing now, right? Now, I take it down a little bit more, hold it there, and hope it's in the center. Now, I'll try and do it in a manner rather unusual to me. Do it with one hand so you have the view of it. And we dig inside. Yes. And we keep pressuring. And then you open. Now, what we did at the beginning was determine the depth. Yes? Now, in the process, we try to determine the width. So I decide how much the opening of the pots will be. Now these stages need to happen in this sequence because the depth, if you try to influence later on, the object will go out of center, for it will be a very fragile object to play with. If you try to determine the width later on, you might have some influence, but it will be very risky when you do so. And then you determine the height. Now the regular way that I would do this, I would put my hands like this, and I would do the first pull and aim for a cone. Yes? Now I will continue with one hand like this, hoping to give you the view. And you see there is a limitation to this technique, because I have a limitation here. I cannot reach to the far end as it grows taller. Yes? So I will do it one last time with this technique, and then I employ another technique, which is what do? I put my left hand inside and leave it hanging, yes, just to give a bit of resistance on the walls here to keep it safe. And then I will use my right hand, and the actual movement that is being played out is this. So the left hand doesn't pressure, which is a common mistake to people who try to work with their will for the first time. Yes, you just put resistance from the inside. Now there is nothing to rush about. Just keep it slowly there. Now, when you get a shape like this, you can either go for a cylinder, yes, which is just to cut out the sides and keep what is left, make a mug, make a cup, or you can try widening it and you can go for a bowl. This is not the most conventional way to go for a bowl. There might be easier way, but we shall give it a go. Yes. You can tell how it's opening. It's a very rewarding procedure and quite pleasant, I have to admit. Now, the better use for credit cards, despite taking money out of the bank, of course, is fixing the shape of the pot at the very end. You will keep spinning. I will bring it to you. You can take a tool like this and make sure to take away. You see here, you take away some of the extra clay. Now, at the beginning, it's necessary to keep that clay there because it helps you sustain the stability of it. For as you make it thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner, then things become problematic. So we bring it here, we get our credit card and make the final shaping. Yes. And we decide that it's ready. Yes. Now we will need a string. Can you give me that string over there? 2 little stones and a string. Excellent. Now, you usually use this string after, of course, you collect the water from inside to cut the piece and take it out. But we shall try something different. We shall cut it here and try and demonstrate the point. Yes. Now, this is a finished pot. You see here, it has thicker amount of clay here. You can see the thickness of the base here, and you can see that as it goes higher, it grows thinner. Now, there is a limitation to how thin you would like to make it. If you work with drier clay, potentially you could aim for thinner results because they will have the stability to stand. Now, this amount here, when you get the feel of it at the very end, it might help it stabilize a little bit, but it feels nicer when you trim it off. But unless you have it here, you can't cut it off the will, because then it's too sensitive and it can't be cut off. So you always leave some thickness here in order to cut it off, position it on the side, and then you can get it off.
Βάλεις το χέρι με το μεταξύ για να το δουλεύεις, μάλιστα με μείνεις και να με βγαίνεις. Να βάλεις τα χέρια έτσι, μπορείς να το ξαναφέρεις.
Μέσα για να το πεις όσο θέλει.
Απαλά, απαλά όμως, όχι, όχι. Τι συμμετέχει.
Κάτι ωραίο.
Πολλά ωραίο.
Όπως έκαναμε πριν, απλά νύχτα προς τα έξω.
Θέλετε πάμε προς τα μέσα, βάλεις τα χέρια να
Και κλείνουν λίγο παραπάνω.
θωρείς και ο δάχτυλος σου φτάνει και πιέζεις με τσίπ το δάχτυλο. Αυτά γύρω και πίεσε έτσι. Και βάλεις προς τα μέσα και κλείνει. Και έναν τέλειο νοικείο για να κάνεις τα χ. Τζατζίκι, wow. Ή από κάτω με στο.
Από κάτω δεν έχεις ξανά.
Πάντα ή από. Δεν κατά τα ίδια μαζί.
Αυτιά.
Ναι, ναι. Και δεν με τηρεί.
Τέλεια, καθάρισε το εργαλείο σου
Οπότε,
και ξανά.
αυτό τέλειωσε. Ναι, πάρε το χέρι έτσι, πιάσει το δύο και πηγόντα με ένα φαγητό.
Πώς νομίζεις ότι είναι αυτό?
Και είναι έτοιμο. Όταν η επόμενη είναι εσύ.
Θα θέλεις να σου φέρουμε ένα εργαλείο που είναι κατάλληλο για να ζωγραφίσεις ή να το πειράξεις με αυτόν τον τρόπο? Έτσι είναι το εργαλείο που έχει άλλο ρόλο.
Μπράβο Πέτρο.
Ορίστε. Πάμε τους δύο. Εντάξει,
Και επειδή ο τροχός πρέπει να είναι καθαρός, πρέπει να ξαναξιανίσεις το επόμενο. Πιάνεις τα νερά και ύστερα για να κοινούς μήνους που πρέπει να πάρεις τα
Ναι, πάρα πολλά. Καλλιτεχνικό δημιουργήμα τώρα, έτσι, πιο ωραίο.
Α, θέλεις. Εντάξει, καλλιτεχνικό δημιουργήμα να κλείσαμε.
Τώρα αυτό το μουσικό.
βάλεις την ταμέ, πατάς τα
Βγάλεις καλύτερο περιπτώσεων.
Πάρε τα δάχτυλα.
Σαν γυρίζει, μπορείς να χρησιμοποιήσεις την καρδίτσα και να κόψεις. Λοιπόν, θα το βγάλουμε μόνο εγώ, άλλο.
Ναι.